This is Chapter 7. So Chapter 7 in your textbook for LW 222 deals with the process of digestion and absorption. So just a few things up front to understand is that our body does go through changes every single day. About 5% of our body weight is replaced by new tissue every day. Your taste cells are replaced every 7 days. Your cells lining your intestinal tract are replaced every 1 to 3 days. Your red blood cells turn over every 120 days. So there's a lot of changes going on inside our body on a day-to-day basis. And the differences between digestion and absorption are something that we need to understand in relationship to this chapter. So digestion is actually the mechanical and the chemical processes where that food that we ingest is converted down and broken down into substances that can be absorbed by the intestinal tract and then used by the body. Whereas absorption, on the other hand, is the process where those nutrients are transferred from the digestive system into the body. Okay, so digestion and absorption are two totally different processes that happen after we eat a meal. So you can see here, this just kind of shows the digestive system starting with, in the mouth. Digestion begins in the mouth and it follows on through our esophagus, into our stomach, down in through our intestines, and out. So when we look at the travel of food, we need to also understand that in order for foods to be broken down, enzymes have to be present. Okay, so your body releases enzymes at different points in our digestive system to help carbs, protein, and fat. So each of those three macronutrients, carbs, protein, and fat, have their own set of digestive enzymes. And if you look here, carbohydrate actually has its own set of 4 different digestive enzymes. You've got amylase, sucrase, lactase, and maltase. Now, each of those are produced in different parts of our body. So amylase is the only one that's produced in 2 different parts. It's in the salivary glands, so it's in your mouth, but also it's produced in your pancreas. The other 3 are produced only in your small intestine. But you can see amylase is actually breaking down carbohydrate starting in the mouth, but then again in the pancreas. Sucrase, lactase, and maltase are broken down in the small intestine. Okay, so the digestion of carbohydrate actually does begin in the mouth due to the breakdown of starches from that salivary amylase that's being released. Fat has one digestive enzyme and it's called lipase. And lipase is produced also in the mouth, in the salivary gland, but also in the pancreas as well. So you can see here that the breakdown of fat also begins in the mouth, but also at the pancreas as well. And then lastly, protein has 2 digestive enzymes. So pepsin and trypsin break down protein, and pepsin is produced in the stomach, and then trypsin is produced in the pancreas. So protein digestion doesn't actually begin until it hits our stomach, and that's when that pepsin is released and it starts to break down those chains of amino acids. So starches are definitely more complex. They're made up of disaccharides and monosaccharides. And again, those particular types of macronutrients are broken down by those 4 digestive enzymes that I just listed earlier. Bile is actually going to be produced in the liver, and it's stored in your gallbladder, and it's secreted into the small intestine. So it breaks down globs of fat that are entering the small intestine down to droplets. So it makes the fat more accessible to lipase. So bile is very, very important in the breakdown of fat. So like I said, digestion can begin in the mouth just by your salivary glands producing that carbohydrate enzyme, and that fat enzyme that starts to break down carb and fat. So again, amylase and lipase are the 2 enzymes that are produced in the mouth that break down carbs and fat. And in the stomach, that food is actually liquefied. It's mixed with digestive juices and it's ejected then into the small intestine. The small intestine I like to call the rock star or the superstar of the digestive system, because that is where pretty much all of your absorption occurs, is in the small intestine. So it's key in the whole process of digestion and absorption. So carbohydrates, about 99% of all carbohydrates are broken down into glucose, 92% of all your proteins are broken down into amino acids, and then 95% of your fats are broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. So like I said, nutrient absorption primarily occurs at the small intestine. So that, like I said, is the rock star of the digestive system, is the small intestine. So the breakdown of that food directly produces energy. Okay, it gives nutrients to different body structures, and it helps with different processes within our body. There are many digestive disorders that people suffer from each year. Some of the more common ones you can see listed here: heartburn, hemorrhoids, IBS, and ulcers are pretty common digestive disorders that folks tend to suffer from. So let's take a look at some of the different ones. Constipation being one, defined as having fewer than 3 bowel movements in a week. So it's characterized by difficulty passing hard, dry stools. It can cause hemorrhoids. So a lot of times it's caused by certain medications people are taking laxatives, and especially not getting enough fiber in our diet. So the recommendation for fiber is anywhere from 25 to 30 grams a day, and that's going to help prevent constipation. So if you're eating a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, and a lot of whole grains, there's a good chance you're getting plenty fiber in your diet daily, and that's going to help with constipation. Also make sure you're drinking a lot of water with that. Ulcers, on the other hand, that develops when the protective lining of the stomach or the duodenum, it's damaged. Okay, and the lining is eroded by stomach acid. It can be painful for people. So we just have to basically look at, what are some foods that might trigger ulcers, and really just try to stay away from those types of foods. For some people, it's spicy foods. For some people, it's tomato-based foods. But over-the-counter medications tend to help, and there's even prescription medication that people can take to alleviate some of those ulcers. Heartburn is another pretty common one. The valve at the top of your stomach relaxes. Therefore, it allows acid back up into our esophagus. So that doesn't feel very good either, kind of just like an ulcer. So things that can lead to heartburn, people who are overweight tend to suffer from it more often, so losing weight can help. Eating too much or too fast in a sitting definitely leads to it. Pregnant women tend to have it more often, and then certain medications can produce it as well. So again, here are some of the things and foods that can contribute to heartburn. So if we can maybe, not ingest these types of foods that we know tend to cause heartburn, that's probably the best way to alleviate it. Or obviously over-the-counter medications can help as well. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. So people tend to have abdominal pain, they have bloating, they have diarrhea, they have constipation at least 3 times a week for 3 months or longer is defined as having IBS. So definitely a lot of people suffer from it today. And as far as controlling your symptoms, really watch your portion sizes. Try to stay away from eating a lot in one setting, because that tends to produce it. Add a lot more soluble fibers into your diet, and probiotics are very helpful as well. And then lastly, diarrhea. Presence of 3 or more liquid stools in a 24-hour period is diagnosed as diarrhea. A lot of it's sometimes due to food that's contaminated, so not properly cleaning it or washing it appropriately. Also, when folks suffer from diarrhea, making sure that we are drinking fluids that contain electrolytes, so Pedialyte for kids, Gatorade, sports drinks for adults, because we want to replenish those electrolytes, because diarrhea can definitely lead to dehydration. So that's a major concern of people who do suffer from diarrhea for long periods of time. We want to make sure that we're rehydrating as needed, and water alone is not going to rehydrate a person who is actually dehydrated. So drinking, things with electrolytes in them is key in prevention of that.